items. 5:29.
Okay, I have a confession to make. For the past couple of months, my rear brake has not done anything. And that's because I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of air bubbles in the brake tube, or the brake line. Now, the proper way to do this is not baby oil, but this is just mineral oil, and that's what my brakes use. But you're supposed to go on Amazon, buy the whole kit, do it the proper way, but we don't do that on this channel. Don't forget about the rubber gasket. That is a key point. So you put some in, you work it in. Oh, there come the air bubbles. Now, I'm only doing it this way because I have really cheap brakes off of Amazon. I highly recommend them. They're great. They work. And for my research, of course, this is not the proper way, but it does get the job done. It's essentially the same thing. Yeah, you can see all the air bubbles coming out. That's my problem. Okay, made kind of a mess, but it works now. Man, having a fully functional rear brake is a game changer. Who would have thought? But okay guys, we have to talk. I'm sure you are aware because I made a community post on my channel yesterday, but Luna, the same Lunacycle that produces or sells the Suron here in North America, along with a bunch of other pretty awesome, mostly mid-drive e-bikes, they just released a brand new model. It's called the Eclipse, and it's pretty freaking awesome. So you can see it right here. It's a folding bike design. And right off the bat, a lot of you guys might be like, I don't like folding bikes. But I would encourage you guys to give it a chance. This really isn't your typical cheap folding bike. It has a lot of great features that I think make it a great bike, especially considering the price, which is just shy of $1,400. Here, we're actually going to take this bike path today. Because one, it's more scenic. I don't have to worry about cars hitting me as I'm discussing this topic. And two, I am running dangerously low on battery. I'm at 71.5 volts and I have 12 miles to go. And I think my BMS cuts off at like 62 volts, something like that. Okay, so the Eclipse. The price tag is phenomenal, $1,400, and for the money, you're getting a nice, compact, folding design bike. Now, the frame isn't the only thing that makes this bike compact. The wheels are 20-inch diameter, 4-inch wide fat tires, which is pretty common nowadays in the e-bike space. And I'm a big fan of these wheels because it's pretty easy to put on something like a Shinko tire and really upgrade the capabilities of this bike along with the durability of the tire. Now, the next thing that's special about this folding bike in particular is that it's full suspension. And it's not the only folding bike that is full suspension, but I think they've done a great job, especially when you look at the rear linkage or the swing arm. So the swing arm only has one pivot point in comparison to my bike, which I guess I'll show it to you guys right now. A standard mountain bike has 1, 2, 3, 4 pivot points. And having more pivot points does have its advantages in terms of keeping the wheel on the ground, but one pivot point is good for comfort because it gives you a linear progression to the swing arm. And in terms of maintenance, when you only have one moving part, there's that much less to go wrong. And the maintenance theme is another huge benefit of this bike. This bike is extremely low maintenance all around. But let me quickly finish up on the suspension point. So it says the rear shock is 150 millimeters eye to eye, which is small. That's not ideal. The longer shock, the more travel it has, and the more cushion the ride. But based off of the design, I'm pretty sure you could put in a bigger shock if you so desire. It will slightly mess up the geometry, but I don't see why it wouldn't work putting in a bigger shock, something like 190 millimeters, to give you a lot more travel and that much better of a ride. And based off of my calculations, if you put in a longer shock, it should actually lift up the bike and give you more ground clearance. But let me know your input on that in the comments below. And in terms of the front suspension, it uses a regular straight tube suspension fork. Now, to touch back on the low maintenance side of this bike, the drivetrain is also very special here. So this does not use a chain, it uses a Gates belt drive. And for those of you uninitiated in the belt drive world, that's a good thing because belt drives have next to no maintenance and they last a super long time. But I think the main reason why they put a belt drive on this bike is because the folding design lends itself to being able to put it inside your house, and having a greasy chain really isn't great in that scenario. So a belt drive, on top of being low maintenance, super durable, it's also clean, there's no oil on it. Okay, now before moving on, I do want to touch on the design one more time quickly. So aside from the folding functionality, I do like the handlebars. They have a BMX style bar, and I think the website said it gives you 8 inches of height, and that just translates to giving you a better, more comfortable riding position. Plus, not to mention, in comparison to the Electric XP, which has that pretty dinky looking folding handlebar stem, it really helps to make the bike look more capable and athletic, in my opinion. Okay, but let's finally get to the power system here. So this is the only, or the first bike from Lunacycle that has a hub motor, and it's a geared hub motor, and it's from Bafang, so it's a name brand. It's nominal 750 watts and a peak of 1000 watts. So not crazy high power, and when you match that with the battery, which is 48 volts, and I think 14 amp hours. So this is where they saved a little bit of money and got the price tag down to that $1,400. But even so, I would say that's a pretty adequate amount of power. That should give you a maximum speed of around 25 miles per hour, depending on the terrain, your weight, all that kind of stuff. Although I do want to quickly touch on the torque. This bike should be relatively torquey because it uses a geared hub motor and the wheel size is only 20 inches. So generally speaking, the bigger the diameter of the motor and the smaller the diameter of the wheel, the more torque it's going to give you. So in a nutshell, that's the new Eclipse bike from Lunacycle. It's a compact, fat tire, folding bike with a pretty nominal power system. But of course, on this channel, we love talking about custom builds, modifications, and I think that this bike is actually a perfect foundation for heavy upgrades in the future. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty tempted to purchase this bike. I can't afford it right now, but the price tag is relatively attainable because when I was evaluating the potential of this frame, I was thinking, where can I put my triangle battery? And the way I see it, you have 2 different spots. You can put it either on top of the down tube or on the bottom of it. I think either of those would work pretty well, and you would remove the stock battery to save on some weight. And then in the rear wheel, put a nice direct drive hub motor, and in combination with the small diameter wheel, it's going to be very torquey and give you a lot of power. Then you slap on some Shinko 241 tires, upgrade the suspension with hopefully a longer shock in the back, and that's a pretty solid bike in my book. Oh yeah, not to mention it has a Gates belt drive, so the whole thing will be extremely low maintenance. A hub motor has very few points of failure, a Gates belt drive has even less, and Shinko 241 tires are pretty puncture resistant. So all in, this is going to be an extremely resilient and low maintenance bike as well. So of course I would love to get this bike in hand and do some modifications to it for your viewing entertainment. And to help make that possible, I'm currently working on a Patreon for this channel where you guys can directly support these activities, but I'm currently working on a very special feature for the Patreon, and this is going to be access to a dedicated Discord server all about e-bikes. I'm actually pretty excited for this. I want to have dedicated spots where you guys can talk about your builds, share photos, as well as access different information. One of the pages that I'm currently working on is going to be a list of all of my favorite bike accessories, because I constantly get comments about my fenders, my bike seat, just every little component, and I'm going to have that all laid out right there on the Discord. So with the Patreon, along with supporting the channel directly and all these future builds, I think you're going to get some pretty solid value out of it. Because I know when you build an e-bike for the first time, it can be very daunting and expensive, but this would be a great source of information. You can ask people different questions, and I don't know, I think it's a pretty solid idea. But regardless, hope you guys enjoyed the video. You guys know that I appreciate a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Don't rely on the YouTube algorithm to show these videos to you. And I'll see you guys in the next one.